And now let's take a closer look at the naming convention editor. This is where you can specify how you want your stems and mixes to be named for the currently selected job. And naming blocks are used to define the naming convention. This is especially useful in stem mode, since each stem will have a different name, which AutoBounce can automatically create for you. This area is the Output File Name Format field, where you can type in a naming block and or drag in any of the dynamic naming blocks from this area below. Dynamic naming blocks are blocks that automatically update based on factors like the project name, track name, SMPTE time, sample rate, date, etc. They can be dragged into the Output File Name Format field, and they can also be copied and pasted into the naming convention editor window of another job. Note, you can tell the difference between a dynamic naming block and a custom one that you created, whose name stays the same, because dynamic naming blocks have brackets around them and custom ones don't. As you can see here, the word stem is a custom naming block. Project name and track name are dynamic ones. Dynamic naming blocks are a massive time-saving tool, as it frees you from having to manually update the name of every file you export. For example, besides automatically filling in your track names, film composers will love that AutoBounce can automatically add the starting SMPTE time of the area you are bouncing. And game composers will love that AutoBounce can automatically add the current area's time signature and BPM to all of your mixes and stems. And at the bottom of the window, we can define what kind of separators we want in between the naming blocks. You have a choice of underscore, dash, space, or nothing at all. Let's say you want your stems to automatically be named to include sequential numbers, the logic project name, and the track name with an underscore between each. You simply drag these naming blocks right here into the editor. Make sure underscore is clicked, and that's it. After pressing OK, you will immediately see a preview of what the file names will look like in the preview area. Now remember, you're not limited to dynamic naming blocks, but you can create your own. So let's say I'm doing a video game here and I wanted to create a different naming convention for my stems, which are really actually submixes of different layers that are going to be on top of each other. So I might say, let's say Funhouse, which is the area of the map. Then I'm going to take then I'll hit return. There's my own custom naming block. Then I'll take the track name. Then I'm going to say layer. And then I want the time signature and BPM. Let's see what that looks like. Perfect. So you can see here that when I run this submix here, which is my tension layer, it's got all these other tracks inside of it, I now have the stem or the submix perfectly named, and it'll change for, let's say, this one as well, right? Okay, so let's do one more example. Let's say I have a logic project where there are 3 sections that have different cycle ranges. Keep your eye on the cycle range here. The start and end points are going to be different in each of these areas. And I want to export a full mix of each of these different areas, but I want to use the dynamic naming blocks. So look at what I can do here. In this case, I'm going to call it the job name, which will say the section. Then I'm going to say I'd like to put in the BPM, the time signature, and the SMPTE time. I can also change these around if I wanted to. Now let's take a look at what that's going to preview as. So there we go. I like the look of that. Now, in order to get this naming convention to the other jobs that are already created, I can simply open the naming convention editor, hit copy, Command C, go into the next job, hit edit, and paste it in. Look how the preview updates immediately to show you the current information. And I'll do it the same for the third job. There we have it. Now I can press bounce and wait for those mixes to export. So after stepping away for a few minutes, I came back, and here's my bounce folder. You can see right here, Auto Bounce perfectly exported those mixes exactly the way I named them in the naming convention editor. Pretty cool.